Practice test number 1, part 4. This one's a tough one. X cubed plus 4x squared minus 4x minus 16 equals 0. Please do not think you're going to use the quadratic formula on this. Why can I not use the quadratic formula? It's a cube. So my strategy is going to be different. No. Zeros are sacred numbers. We do not want to lose that 0. Mariah.
Can't you like separate the equation and then do like take out the x?
Yes.
The first part and then
So what she's talking about is you hear her say separate it into parts. We're going to have to factor by grouping. So she says, look at the first 2 terms, just the first 2. What can come out of the first 2?
X squared.
X squared. What is left when I take out an x squared? X plus 4. Perfect. Everybody still with me?
Yeah.
Now, do exactly the same thing with the second 2. What can you pull out of that? A negative 4? And what's that going to leave me with? X plus 4. Remember, you took out the negative. You took out the negative. If you have done it right, these 2 are going to match. If these don't match, you got to try again. So, they match. So I'm going to write down the match. There it is. Notice, I don't write it twice. I don't put a squared on it. I write down the match. And then I make another parentheses and I write down everything else, which is x squared minus 4.
You write like the insides and one of them and the outsides.
Yeah.
Can't you just like plug them? To make it like x squared isn't wrong?
You mean they change this order? Yeah, that doesn't matter. But I'm not done with this anyway, because what about x squared minus 4? How does that factor?
you run it twice.
X plus 2.
No, not x plus 2, x plus 2. X plus 2, x minus 2. This is called the difference of squares. It's one of those things you learned a long time ago. Gotta remember, x plus 2, x minus 2. Now, what's the answer to the question? There's gonna be 3 of them. X equals negative 4, negative 2, and 2, right? Because remember, you don't have to write it down, but the step that comes next is set them all equal to 0.
Yeah.
So when you set that equal to 0, aren't you going to get negative 4? And negative 2 and 2.
Can't you just put x squared plus 4 equals 0, and then add 4?
Yep, and square root both sides? Yep. As long as you remember plus or minus. Yep. Okay, Z keeps asking me this, so I'm going to answer it one more time. Everybody's going to approach the problems a little bit differently, and that's okay. Don't cheat. Show all your work. Get the right answer. Life is good. Okay, here we go next. What are you going to do with this guy? Square both sides? Now, this is one I'm going to make a little note here. I have to check this. Because the ones where we square both sides, remember what can happen? We can get what we call an extraneous root. So we're going to check just to make sure that our answer is okay. All right, so here we go. Let's square. 3x minus 8 equals 36.
Yeah, and then you would add the 8 over here.
So 3x equals 44,
And then
X equals 44.
44 thirds. Now, before you start freaking out, you're just thinking, I gotta check that. Look what happens. What happens when you plug that in here? So you have 3 times 44 thirds
yeah,
minus 8. What happens when you multiply these together?
you get 44.
Yeah, you just get 44.
And you do
44 minus 8 is
this.
36, and the square root of 36 is 6. All good. That's your answer. No number line, no shading, it's an equals problem. We only do number lines and shading when we have less thans and greater thans. Speaking of which, we got one. Problem C. Anybody have an idea?
Could you use the quadratic?
You actually could use the quadratic if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You could use the quadratic formula. What else can you do, Navi? You can actually factor this one, and it's a pretty easy factoring problem. But again, I'm not telling you you have to factor. You can use the quadratic formula if you want. What are the factors if I choose to do it that way?
6, 2.
Minus 6 plus 2?
Yeah, that's right.
Now, this one is an inequality, so
When that-
don't say x equals 6, x equals negative 2. This is a number line, a dot at negative 2, and a dot at 6 for sure on my number line. This is an inequality. That's your signal, number line, shade. It's a greater than,
It goes out.
out. So, here we go, answer. Now look at this section. Negative infinity, negative 2, parentheses, bracket. U, no arguments or whining, U, and then bracket 6, parentheses, infinity.
So you don't have to like do the x minus 6 is greater than 0 when you add it. You add 6 over, so
That won't work in an inequality. That's a property of equations, not inequalities. So you've got to do it somehow with a number line and shading, okay?
Yeah.
And you only write it like that to ask for an interval notation.
Mm-hmm.
So for the answer, you just put down what would you put down for the answer?
Well, if you're wondering, why don't you just put this down for the answer? Does this make sense to you?
Yeah.
Then let's just write that down for the answer. All right, number 5. We'll get through number 5, and we'll see where we're at then. All right, number 5. Here are 2 points. Some of us are forgetting what this means. That means the distance. That means distance. You need to know that. It's not gonna say find the distance, it's gonna say this, just like it did on the quiz. So that's the big radical, that's your distance formula. And what happens underneath the radical? What do we do?
6 minus 1.
So we subtract our x's.
Squared.
Some of you get these mixed up, so you might wanna label them, just so you remember. Subtract your x's and square it.
Then plus.
Subtract your y's, keeping track of the negatives. So 3 minus negative 2.
That's gonna be 25 plus 36.
Alright, what's 6 minus 1?
5.
Squared,
25.
25. What's 3 minus negative 2?
5.
5. Squared is 25. what about the square root of 50? Remember, you have to break them down if they break down. 5 root 2. So those of you that are a little bit behind on that, it's 5 times 10, which is 5 times 2. So it's 5 on the outside, 2 on the inside. Perfect. Anybody have a question about that? Everybody knows this means distance. All right. Then the next one, part B, says find the midpoint. So same 2 points, find the midpoint. So this answer will just be an ordered pair, an X and a Y. How do we find midpoint? Never a subtraction. Midpoint is an average value. So when you average things, you add them and divide by 2. So 1 plus 6 is 7 divided by 2. Now, you're free to leave it 7 divided by 2. You can write that 3.5. You can write it 3.5. I don't care. I'm just going to leave it 7 over 2. And then here, negative 2 plus 3 divided by 2. So if you kind of forgot, next to that problem, write midpoint is average. That will remind you that you simply add them and divide by 2. Part 6. Okay, lots to keep track of. Part 6 says we're going to write the equation of the line through these 2 points. We got 2 of them, so let's do this one in slope intercept. And we'll do the second one in point slope, just so you get practice writing both. So we need to get the slope first. It always starts there. It doesn't matter what the directions are. If you're doing a line, you need the slope. So, okay, more to remember. How do we do slope? 15 minus 3 over 2 minus negative 2. So 12 over 4, Brennan says that's 3, is he right?
Yeah.
Now what do we do?
Plug it in.
Plug what in, where, how, what am I doing? Pick a point. So let's use this one because it's got smaller numbers. And we'll do y minus 3 equals this 3 times x plus 2. Now this is the point slope form. But I need slope intercept for this problem.
So if you want to just get it
So
all
I
out,
want to distribute.
so it's going to be y equals 3x plus 9.
Yes, it is. And there is your slope intercept form. So if it said slope intercept, this would be the answer. Navi?
What's underneath the answer to the slope?
2 minus negative 2, y minus y.
No, the y minus 3 equals.
Oh, that's your point slope form. That's how we write the equation of a line.
Okay.
So we pick a point, I pick that one. You do y minus the y coordinate equals m times x minus the x coordinate.
Okay.
And then you either leave it or you clean it up depending on what the directions say. All right, one more problem, guys, and then we'll be done. You're doing great. One more problem. Now we're going to be perpendicular to this and containing the point negative 2, 1.
Wouldn't they be opposite?
So what do we need to do? Aiden, do you have any idea?
No.
No?
I think
Try to stay focused, pay close attention. Mariah?
You have to go over the 2x onto the x of 1
Okay, she is saying to you, take the equation they gave you and get y by itself. So if you subtract the 2x, you'll have negative y equals negative 2x plus 6.
Yes, but you have to divide.
Then you're gonna divide by the negative all the way across. So now you know your slope is 2,
Yeah,
but you have to be perpendicular.
yeah.
So your perpendicular slope will be what? Negative 1/2. Remember, you turn it over and make it negative. Turn it over, change its sign.
I mean, would you be able to do negative y first by just like dividing by -1 to all to both of them before you subtract the 2x over?
Yeah, you can divide first if you want. Yeah. All right, so now I'm going to use this slope and this point.
Yeah.
So here we go. Y minus 1 equals negative 1/2 x plus 2.
It's gonna be.
Now wait, if the directions say point slope,
Just leave it.
you're done. You're done. If it said slope intercept, we would do what we did before. So you would distribute,
Y equals -1/2 x.
and then 1/2 times 2 would be 1. And then adding 1 to both sides. So this would be the slope intercept form. This is the point slope form. Okay? All right, let's pause there. Next time, we will pick up there and move on to the next practice test, because we got 3 of them to do.